Before we head into the next part of the panel, just wanted to say a few words. One, when we started with the first Global Entrepreneurship Week that I was really part of was in 2019, and we as a team kind of looked at what do we want to do next and how do we want to build kind of this ecosystem going forward. We had this vision of serving as a premier hub for regional innovation and entrepreneurship. And we looked at kind of what that future was, and we launched the first Entrepreneurial State of the Union. It wasn't quite as filled of a place when we were originally kind of launching into like what this strategy might look like. And we're excited now, looking back 5 years, how much this ecosystem has grown. And so I wanted to share a few quotes that really resonate with me around entrepreneurial ecosystem building and kind of where I see us going, and I can share some updates along the way. So the first is you have to have a long-term view, at least 20 years from today. And so looking back, 5 years ago, where we were as a community, we didn't have a growth factory. We didn't have a venture fund that was actually investing through that accelerator. We didn't quite have as in-depth of a community to support founders and growing. And so we really have taken these leaps and bounds as an entrepreneurial ecosystem to move forward. And so it's exciting to see that continued progress. And one of the things about that is that we always need to be continually looking from today. And so what's next for us as an entrepreneurial ecosystem? And one of the things that launched out of kind of looking at this quote here is around the density that supports entrepreneurs in succeeding. So entrepreneurs really move around the community at basically the velocity of resources and connectivity. And so one of the things that we launched in partnership with the Growth Factory and Startup Sac was this group called the Sacramento Entrepreneurial Growth Alliance, which is entrepreneurial support organizations and champions that are fostering that connectivity going forward. And we're proud to say that we are now partnering with the Greater Sacramento Economic Council to expand that and really make entrepreneurship a core driver for economic development, which will be a core part of our panel discussion. And when you look at traditional economic development, entrepreneurship's always been a core component to that, but it's not one that's always been, a core driver to creating new jobs and opportunities. And we're excited to partner with GSEC in advancing that work, and we're excited to share that going forward. And I want to share this last one here. Really, we've heard about the backyard advantage, right, and how that kind of is all about fostering the connectivity of people and love. And so there's this word, if you haven't heard of it, it's called topophilia. It's about love of place. And so when we think about that backyard advantage that you might have heard through the Growth Factory, is really, yes, it's the people to people, but it's that connection to who we are as a community and who we are as a region, and that's core to how we're going to advance supporting entrepreneurs and founders, is that love of place and that connectivity we have with one another, and we're excited to continue to do that. And so I'm just super excited to have seen where we were 5 years ago and where we are to now as a community and fostering our regional ecosystem. And so with that, I want to bring up a partner in crime, Monique Brown, who's been a core part of helping foster the Sacramento Entrepreneurial Growth Alliance and the Growth Factory, who will be moderating our first panel. So here we go.
Hey, everybody. I come with a handful, so give me a sec here. All right. Well, it is great to see everybody here tonight, and I'm really excited about this panel. I'd like to invite our panelists to just come up and take the stage. Ashita, LaKenya, and Michael, come on up. These are entrepreneurs that are growing their businesses here in our community, and today I really want to have a conversation with them about what that's like. Because as Cameron said, looking back 5 years ago, we're in a much better place today. There's a lot of momentum, a lot of connectivity that's growing, a lot of great partners that are in this room, from SMUD to Sierra College to Clean Start to Ag Start, City of Elk Grove, I see. Yeah, woo! And, we're working together, and that's amazing. And that is a really big step forward. But growing a company is hard. And we're still, I would call us an emerging ecosystem, right? And so I want to have some real talk tonight about what it's been like to grow your companies here. Who's helped? Where are the challenges? What do you need? And those are the kinds of things, like, we're doing good, but we got a long way to go. We've got 15 more of those 20 years and then some, probably, right? So let's hear from the people who are doing it firsthand, really the truth, right? Like, about what this is like. So, do I have one mic or two? We passing? Okay, so what I'd like to do is have them, and what is super fun about this group, first of all, I just adore each one of them as people and as founders, so this is going to be fun. But they're representing different kinds of companies, which I think is important because we're supporting different kinds of companies in this ecosystem. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves, say just a brief bit about your company, and then we'll jump into the conversation. Does that work? Okay. And I think that we'll start. LaKenya.
Good evening, everyone. My name is LaKenya Henry. I am co-owner and founder of Sugar Coated Cupcakes. We like to call ourselves a gourmet luxury mobile cupcakery. And my daughter and I have ran this business now for almost 5 years.
And she is the recent winner of the King's Capitalized Food first year competition. You can find the chicken waffle cupcake on the mezzanine in Lowbrow at the arena. I highly recommend it. Okay.
So I am Michael Santiago. I'm a PhD from Cornell University, and I run Florapulse. We sell water sensors that measure the thirst of the trees. So we give the growers the most accurate information in the world, any other company, on how and when to irrigate. We've been in the Sacramento area for about 6 years now, and it's been quite the journey. So I guess I'll talk about that a little bit more, but it's great to be here.
Thank you, Michael.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Ishita Shah, and I'm a PhD in microbiology and biochemistry, and now co-founder and CEO of Microbials. And we are a UC Davis spin-out developing therapies for infectious diseases, starting with women's health as our lead indication. And for that, we are translating specific components present in human milk, acting like antibiotics for developing these topical products. And I'm very thankful to be here, and we've been enjoying lots of resources from the local help groups, including Growth Factory, for the last 2 years, and we're preclinical at this time, but trying to get further on with IND applications with the FDA in the next couple of years. So thank you.
So I think what's probably pretty apparent is that there's a lot of brains in the Sacramento region, and we've got 3 big ones on the stage. So I'm excited about that. But let's dig in. What I'd like to start with you, Ishita, on this is you have been a part of a lot of different programs, both in the region and outside the region. Can you talk a little bit about when you were at UC Davis and thinking about spinning this out, how did you think about the kind of help you needed, and how did you make the decision to go find that? How did that start?
So for us, the biggest benefit was, being at UC Davis was Venture Catalyst, which is the organization or sort of part of UC Davis that helps startup companies that have been founded. So they help with the founding if you have discoveries made that need translation. So we started with a lot of work for almost last 8 years at UC Davis. And that resulted in findings that we thought needed to be translated to make products that can benefit patients and have end user economics at the same lines. So we approached Venture Catalyst, and the first thing that we did as part of that was get further advice from California Life Science Fast Advisory Program, specifically because it's life sciences. And as we go on with the companies, we realize that early stage R&D is really 5 to 10% of what you eventually need to do to get a product to the market with further clinical development, product development, validation, safety, etc. So we started with California Life Science Program. That led to applications with Y Combinator. We got into Y Combinator and started developing it from a very business side of the work compared to just early R&D. And so it started from there. Then we became part of Growth Factory. So I continued to learn how to switch from just being a scientist to also now talking like I wanted to develop a business. And that was a huge learning. So since then, we have continued to work on that path. And then we became a part of the Fourth Wave program here, which is specifically designed for female founders who want to get onto the business side of life. And so it's been on, and every place that we've been is very unique in terms of what it offers. And that's been the biggest benefit for us, is that we've taken lots of information from each of these programs, starting specifically with life science, and then Y Combinator, which is very wide spectrum, to then Fourth Wave and Growth Factory simultaneously. And we're still continuing to learn, I guess, and that'll be forever. So
yeah, and I should say, growing a company in the life science space is not a short journey, right? And so to Ishita's point, starting from that R&D and then looking at how do we translate that into the market, and having people that will hang with you for that journey is probably hard to find sometimes.
But we've been lucky. I think all of the people who we've been part of, like including Venture Catalyst, Growth Factory, Fourthway, I think we're still in connection with all of them, and it's a long-term relationship rather than just for that short time of the program. So we're very fortunate.
Thank you, Ishita. So Michael, you located here, I think, to be a part of the UC Davis ecosystem. You want to tell a little bit about, and that might not be tell the story.
Well, it's a bit of a long story, but basically, I'm from Puerto Rico. Eventually, I moved to Cornell. I did my PhD there, and during that time there, we developed what turned out to be pretty interesting product, which is what we're now selling. And it just seemed to me that if I wanted to see this, I guess similar to our speaker here, if I wanted to see this come to the real world, I had to be the one to take it because I was the one that developed it. And so then, we started a company, and it's a product for agriculture, particularly for trees and vines. And so it made no sense to start it in New York. There's some wines in New York, and they're okay, but the best wines, the better wines are usually in California. And likewise, many of the things that we eat that you can notice, it's like almonds and all these things are all grown in California. So then kind of looking at that, we had some great connections at UC Davis. There was a professor there. And then just kind of decided, well, we're going to start it in California. We'll see where this goes. And so I moved out to California, particularly to Davis, to be near the university. And it's been wonderful. I mean, it's I feel like this whole area has that nice mixture of, some capital, clearly San Francisco nearby, but also Sacramento. And then you have agriculture. There's a food ecosystem. And I really like the entrepreneurship ecosystem that we have, that it's kind of burgeoning, but it's also been there for a bit. I remember when I moved about 6 years ago, I was looking for where do I get the office or whatever. So I looked around, and there were some pages online, but some of the incubators were dead, and there were some things like that. But then over time, I kind of became connected with Inventopia, and then later on Growth Factory. And it's been interesting because I have not been part of these, my company has not been part of any of these programs officially, but we've been kind of getting all this stuff for free because we've been extremely grateful. Actually, people like Axstart, I see John over here. And then Growth Factory, the Startup Sacramento, people like Monique and Laura Good just make it all great. And so right now, many of my friends are from let's say the Inventopia crowd, and some people from the Sacramento area as well. And so we started this company in Davis. It was really challenging initially because you have limited resources, and it's hard tech, hard science. But we got lots of free help from the university, and then just kind of move things forward. And we've been, and then COVID happened and all of that, but we got through the initial phase of research. We have a product now. We're profitable, so we're just kind of moving forward with that.
Yeah, talk about that for a second. So we have pre-revenue and pre-FDA, right? And then you came with a product, but not yet significant revenue, and now you're in multiple countries, right?
Yeah,
so you're selling in multiple countries, and revenue targets for this year?
We came here, we had no product or nothing, and then we started selling in 2020. So it took a few years before that, and then right now we're in 22 countries. We're profitable. This year we've been growing pretty decently. This year we're probably going to hit 700,000 and growing probably 50% year over year last few years. So
to be celebrated.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I just to finish that, we have 22 countries, and we have distributors in Europe and Australia, Chile, Canada, a few in California. So it's looking promising at the point.
That's awesome. Okay, LaKenya, we just met through Capitalize, but this is, this woman is, there's gonna be a sugar-coated cupcakes in every city in this country if she has anything to do with it. But anyways, so tell us a little bit about your story, right? You were in retail, and then COVID hit.
So my background is corporate retail. Spent 25 years on the merchandise planning and staffing side. So working for companies like Nike, Macy's, in corporate retail, like I said, for 25 years. My daughter and I started this business in 2019. It was truly a hobby. And 2020 hit, and I was without a job. And so my husband was like, well, you started a business. And I was like, cupcakes pay the bills. I'm not sure about that. We'll see. But cupcakes are definitely paying the bills. And we've been on a journey, which I like to say with my daughter, that has been really exciting to say the least. And it's one that I don't think either of us, mainly her, would have even expected to see that we are now. Where we started with pop-ups at Dress Barn, to now we're in Golden One Center, right? So it's just amazing to see the journey. We're both not formal, we're not formally trained bakers, but we do have that passion. And it was something that obviously, raising her and growing up, that's something that we've always done together. But it's that 25 years of corporate experience is what has made us successful, because I've always, from day one, even though it was a hobby at that time, operated it as if it were a corporation. And that's important to us because, like all of our I's, all of our T's crossed. And it's been important to me too, because I feel like certain parts of this, we've navigated through this blindly, not really knowing where to go. Because it's like, okay, well, do we have the right permits? Are we doing the right insurances? Do we have the right this and that? And, it's been great. One of the things I always like to say is that there's lots of cohorts and things out there on how to start a business. But then once you get started, you're here in year 4, what's next, right? What's next for year 5? Where do you see yourself in the future? And so, we're always trying to stay flexible, because if you're rigid, you're not going to survive, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of businesses fail, is because they fail to be flexible. And that's one of the things that we did. Our visions of grandeur when we first started was that, we're going to have a storefront, cute little storefront with flowers and pink and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, nope. I shut that down quickly. I'm like, look, and I always tell her whenever she's like, Mom, we should do this. And I'm like, well, how many cupcakes will it cost us? How many cupcakes do we have to sell to make that happen, right? And she just, she rolls her eyes at me. But, in the end, it helps her to understand that there's not just, let's do this. We always have to have a serious plan behind everything that we do. And, so it's been a good journey. I thank my background for definitely getting us to where we are right now. But, I appreciate the support that we've received from Monique and Growth Factor and any of the other cohorts that we've been able to participate in.
Thank you. How am I doing on time? 10 minutes. All right, let's do the real talk stuff. Okay, so tell me what the hardest part about what you're doing right now is, and what you need. Like, what are you having? Like, I think you just spoke a little bit to is like, okay, we're launched, we're year 4. Now what? Where do you look? You look to your left, you look to your right. What do you need? And so let's start with you, where you're at now today, and what's missing, or what you wish you had, or what's hard. Let's talk about that.
Like I said, when we started this, it was, blind navigation, right? Hoping and throwing darts that we were in the right space. And as I shared, there's so many places there that are out there now that help you start a business. But what I truly feel is missing is what will help you stay in business, and not necessarily relying on someone to give me the ideas of what I need to do, but to really coach and mentor, right? To see examples of successful businesses, whether they're bakers or, doing what he does. It's allowing us to see exactly, like, this is your next step. This is what you should consistently be thinking about. This is what growth should look like for you. Those are things that are not necessarily available. And those are things that, I'm constantly on the search for. It's like, okay, so where should we be at this point? We've chosen not to have a storefront. We've chosen to remain mobile. Did we make wise decisions in doing that too? So, I think the biggest piece is, now that you've started a business, the question is, what next?
Great, thank you. And I think that is a question we hear a lot in our programs, don't we, right? And so Cameron can get a lot of founders started in things like Lean Innovator or whatever. They can come over to Growth Factory and, in that pre-seed stage. And then we're like, now what? Who do we give them to next, right? And we're constantly thinking about like what programs do we need to build, what community do we need to build, like what resources can we connect people with. But I think you're absolutely right. We get that question all the time. I need help. What's next? Where do I go, right? So thank you for sharing that, Michael. What about you?
It's kind of similar. I mean, I guess my startup is a little interesting because we're talking very, hard tech stuff, but we're mostly self-funded, also to government contracts. So we're following a slightly different playbook. And I find that the challenge has been for me, it's like we're trying to do all these things, right? I have a product, so we're doing research and sales. And right now it's a team of 5 people. And it's kind of challenging to figure out how to do it all with this small team and limited resources. And so we can't follow the playbook of venture capital at the moment because we're just not following that. And so just figuring out how to, but I guess everybody has the same issue, just figuring that out. So I guess for me, I would like to maybe have a mentor that has worked on a hard technology in a similar stage, right? Because again, if I just to make, because for example, right now we're trying to like hire someone, and it's like, where do I even find the people that are, not just like entry level, but like more advanced? How do I go find these people? And then how do we grow? Do we want to go more countries or try to grow more into California? And so these decisions are really critical. And right now I'm kind of just, we're just shooting in the dark a little bit.
To have a thought partner to help you like think through some of those things, or somebody who's kind of been on that path or a little ahead of you.
Somebody has experience, yeah.
Yeah, that can really, spitball with you on that stuff. Yeah, that's helpful. Ishita.
So for us, the challenges start with the fact that in early stage biotech companies, the bar is just really high for a successful product that has made it through different clinical trials. So it's not just that one has to eventually have the vision of a product that's first in class, it's also got to be best in class. So unless you're meeting both of those, you might as well not work on it. So in that sense, our challenge has been that because we come from this milk program at UC Davis that has been established for the last 20 years, there has been tremendous research done already in terms of benefits of human milk that can be diverted into products for adult health and overall human health. However, the translation of it is still in very early stages. So for us, the biggest challenges have been around strategy in terms of do we make it an FDA-approved product? Do we go with an OTC market? Do we try to pivot and have a wide spectrum of disease indications that we develop simultaneously versus focusing on just women's health? So there have been constant discussions and decisions that have been made around a lot of the path that we have to move forward with. And also essentially because there isn't a predicate, especially because we're trying to be first in class with wanting to solve the global threat of drug-resistant infections. We don't have ways of really relying on like, what does an IND look like for our type of drug? So everything is new, and it literally is like, we have to start learning from scratch, because even the experts in the field, for example, somebody with a long-term regulatory experience, if they haven't developed a topical product with a peptide in it that we are trying to do it, the entire workflow is unique. And so even though they will bring expertise, our whole path is going to be completely differentiated. So it's a benefit, it's a risk at the same time. And so it's a very exciting, challenging journey at that same time. But yeah, in terms of constant need for help, we rely on a lot of consultants. So when I said, we have long-term relationships, the program that we started with at California Life Science Advisory Program, 5 of those advisors are continuing to be consultants on our company. The same is with you guys at Growth Factory, and Fourth Wave with Jesse and then. So it's going to be a fun journey with continued challenges at the same time.
Yeah. But if anybody is going to do first and best in class, it's going to be you, Ishita. So, it's making me think a little bit about a conversation I was having with Rachel and Evan just before the panel started. And Rachel, I'm sure will share a little bit when she's up here, but she was talking about being a member of EY and some of the founder exposure that they had there to founders that had grown companies 100 million plus, and the wisdom that, you get exposed to when you get to surround yourself with people like that. And I know we're working hard to build a community of amazing mentors. We have DJ Stefan in the back who will also be up here in a few minutes. So, but people like DJ who've grown and exited companies and have been just critical to supporting a lot of the companies that we work with. And I know Cameron's done an amazing job building a mentor network, but we continue to need people who have different kinds of skills and expertise and who want to support founders who are growing their businesses in our community. And we need to continue to engage new people in that. And we have, a lot of people coming into the ecosystem, and we have a lot of efforts to bridge this ecosystem to resources beyond, like Rachel is doing with EY. But I think that was a definite theme in terms of what you heard up here is like, it's really like that mentorship, coaching, advice. Nobody said money. Right?
That's default, right?
But I love that you didn't say money, because we often hear that from our founders. What do you need? I need money. Okay.
We all need money.
But what you heard, I think, was different than that. And I love that. And I think, especially in Ashida's case, but in everybody's case, this is a long journey with a lot of risk. And these people are putting their heart and soul in their lives, investing that into this effort. And I think coming together and coming around them as a community for the long haul, and really walking that journey beside them really builds, our collective capacity and capabilities. But thank you. How many, like two, wrap up comment? Okay. All right. So if you could ask for one thing tonight, what would you ask for? And we talked about mentors and coaching, so we'll put an exclamation point on that. But beyond that, specific ask.
More VC firms in the greater Sacramento
There we
region.
go. All right, there's the money one. But yes, and VC firms that understand the life science space, I would, yes. Okay. Yes. Okay.
I would say more entrepreneurs in hard sciences like us. It'd be fun to have our friends in the.
Great.
I know Monique said that there was lots of big brains, but that's big brains down there.
Oh, don't you dare. No way, man.
But if my one ask, it still goes back to mentorship, really, at the end of the day. I think that is like the key, guidance, right? You want to just continue to have those steps that you can take and have someone there to support you, so you don't feel like you're like faltering at one point. So I still stick with mentorship.
Well, thank you. Can we give these guys a round of applause? Amazing. Thank you so much. And I think, Cameron, it is back to you now.
Right. So the next panel will be our entrepreneurship and economic development panel. So I'd like to have, here we go. Give me 1 second. We have Claire Whitmer, who's the Assistant Deputy Director of and Regional Economic Engagement and NorCal Regional Advisor of the California Office of the Small Business Advocate, goes by Cal OSBA. So obviously a government entity there. So let's welcome Claire to the stage. Let's give her some love as she comes on up. There we go. Next, we have Orville Thomas, who's the CEO of the California Mobility Center. So we'll have Orville come on up. All right, is he sneaking? There he is, sneaking on up. Then we have Evan Schmidt, the CEO of Valley Vision. And then Trolls Adrian, the Executive Vice President of the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. All right, and last but not least, John Supp, the co-founder and board chair of AgStar. All right, so awesome panel, and thank you again, Monique, for leading the charge there and just sharing that entrepreneur's perspective and kind of navigating the resources. And so as we kind of like take that next higher level thinking of kind of how do we build the ecosystem to support those entrepreneurs and getting those resources, things such as mentorship, capital to ultimately grow. We also want to understand that role that it plays in fostering our regional economy and also our statewide economy and so on. And so what I'd love for you, I kind of shared your high level titles, but would love for you to introduce just briefly your role that you play in economic development and kind of how entrepreneurship as economic development ties into it. And so we'll maybe start with Claire, since you got the mic there, and then you'll have to pass back and forth between the couple of you there.
All right, so again, Claire Whitmer with the California Office of the Small Business Advocate, which is an independent office within the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. And Cameron gave my ridiculous long titles, so I won't do that again. But I represent Northern California, and I represent all of our field team, people who are doing outreach and meeting small businesses in the field. And Cal OSBA exists as an independent office in recognition of the fact that small businesses drive our economy and literally provide half of all private sector jobs in the state. So our office took a much bigger profile in the COVID era, where we passed out $5 billion in direct relief grant funds, biggest as such programs in the country during that time. And now that the era of the big grant program is more or less behind us, we're really focusing on advocacy and ecosystem development, including with our partners here at Carlson Center.
Hey everyone, Orville Thomas. I am the new CEO of the California Mobility Center, and I'm still learning what I do. It's been 5 days. I started last Monday. And the California Mobility Center, for those who are not familiar, is a public-private partnership. It's a nonprofit with the goal of helping set up clean energy, clean power, and zero-emission innovation campus in partnership with Sac State and SMUD and the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. And we believe that it's probably the last and best chance for Sacramento to get in on the decarbonization of transportation economy. And what we can do at the Mobility Center is create a workforce development program and train the next generation of workers in the green economy, and also create a space where entrepreneurs from the Carlson Center, Sac State, and the greater region can come together, do research and development, do prototyping and testing, and then do small scale manufacturing. And the hope is that we can connect them with the partners that are in this room and in our community, help them scale up, and then find a great place in Sacramento to do large scale manufacturing and continue to do that cycle over and over again, so that we can be a part of the transition to zero emissions.
All right, thank you. I love it that you're here on day 5 of the job. I think that's very entrepreneurial. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Evan Schmidt. I'm the CEO of Valley Vision. Valley Vision is a nonprofit organization here in Sacramento, although we're kind of regionally facing. And we work on livable communities by advancing economic prosperity, social equity, and environmental sustainability. And so we have a really broad lens on economic development, and we really activate the most where you see economic development, workforce development, community development all coming together to help support our communities and the people in them. So we work on kind of big picture regional economic strategy. We have a large initiative going on right now that really demonstrates the state of California's commitment to inclusive economic development. We're anchoring a project called California Jobs First, or a SURF project, where we're helping shape an inclusive economic development strategy for an 8-county region, and really see entrepreneurship and especially that strong ecosystem as a large part of that strategy and the approach that we'll be advocating for.
Hello, everyone. Charles Adrian, I'm the Executive Vice President at the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. And before I get into my spiel, speaking of entrepreneurial, how about Cameron Law, the one-man army here, who set up the stage? That was impressive stuff. Most people have people for that, but you just get, you get that done. I know, it's amazing. It's amazing. So, anywho, the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, we're the regional economic development organization for the 6-county area that comprises, Greater Sacramento. We focus a little more narrowly than, say, Valley Vision. We focus very heavily on driving the economic prosperity of the region forward through advancing industry clusters, so companies and industries that really export, if you will, knowledge and goods outside of the region, bring dollars into the community. And so within our organization, I lead all of our marketing, regional strategy, and research work, as well as our business development work. You're probably very, very well familiar with our work to recruit companies into the region. That's what we're mostly known for. But really, at the core of what we do, we are a leadership organization in the sense that what we go out and do, and what economic development organizations, or EDOs as we're known, do when they do best, is they identify what are the behaviors, what are the strategies, what are the benchmarks that characterize a successful economic region, and then we try to drive change towards that. We're a public-private partnership as well. We have over 40 CEOs, private sector CEOs on our board, and then we have 22 communities that are investors. So one of the things that allows us to do is that we can really drive change across sectors, across geography, and across industries. So, and by the way, we work very, very closely, of course, with everyone up here, including, of course, Orville and my friend John Selp, whom I'm about to give the mic to.
Thank you, Trolls. So I'm John Selp. I'm the board chair, as Cameron mentioned, for AgStart, which is another public-private nonprofit in the region. We support startup companies in the ag and food technology domain. This Sacramento region has some unique assets. We have the #1 agri-food research institution in the country, UC Davis. We are in the center of the most productive agricultural region in the country and much of the world in the California Central Valley agriculture. So it stands to reason that if there's innovation that's going to advance the sustainability, the effectiveness, and the productivity of agriculture, that it would come from this region. We're just trying to support those ideas and help those entrepreneurs to become successful. What we found is through the 12 years we've been running this program since, 2012, we're almost in 2024, so 11 years. We've been supporting companies mostly as the cheerleaders on the side of the field, waving the pom-poms and cheering them on. But we realized by talking to these startup companies that they needed critical resources. They needed that initial wet lab capability where they could do their commercialization work without having to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in building their own labs, their own spaces. And when we opened our facility in 2021, our initial facility filled up within 5 months. Every bench was full. So we recently expanded again, and we've discovered that many of our startup companies have created new jobs, new full-time professional jobs in the region. 5 of the companies that have been in our facility while they were in our facility raised private capital that amounted to about $60 million of new capital flowing into the region. 4 of those companies have graduated out of our incubator. They've now gone through those initial bench level steps, and they're now into their own private real estate leaseholds in the region where they're doing pilot scale or doing scale up production, again, creating opportunities for real estate developers to find new clients for their holdings. They're creating additional jobs, raising additional capital. There's this kind of flywheel of economic development that was just waiting to be triggered. We're still on a 20-year vision, as I think was mentioned earlier, but we're about 10 years into that, and we're starting to see that there is activity going based on startup entrepreneurs being focused and dedicated on what they're doing, and they're creating jobs and employment for the whole region.
Awesome. Well, I got one here, so thank you. So I think some of the key things that I'm pulling across that was just the different sectors that we heard. So one, kind of as a region, with the leadership of GSEC and Valley Vision and the Metro Chamber, kind of identified 3 core industries. So food and ag, health and life sciences, and then I like the way Orville put it, the decarbonizing transportation. Did I get that right?
That's right.
5 days in, already creating a new a way to say it, so I appreciate that. And so really kind of focusing on those innovation clusters. And I think what comes to mind around entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship as economic development is 2 things. One, job creation, so creating new opportunity, and then creating competitiveness in a region which kind of serves as attractive. And so one we'll pass it maybe to Claire. And so we'd love to kind of see from your perspective, and we'll work our way down on kind of the role entrepreneurship plays as economic development, really pulling on those two levers of job creation and then creating competitiveness. And I know you have, one, the regional perspective, but also from a statewide of how we do that as well.
Well, I love the name of the panel and the way that you're framing this, because of course at Cal OSBA, entrepreneurship as economic development. Well, yeah, obviously economic development is about, literally, this is what they put in the textbooks, is about creating and retaining jobs. And as I'd mentioned earlier, that is what small business does in any economy, although particularly in California. So 4.2 million small businesses in the state of California. Next state on the list is Texas, with more than 1 million fewer small businesses. So California really is the biggest small business community in the country, potentially even the world. And 45% of those businesses are owned by Hispanics or other people of color. And so they drive our economy, yes, half of all private sector jobs, but they also reflect our communities. They are community leaders. So yes, it is economic development to support small business growth. And if you talk to any mayor, they are going to, I'm just going to refer to the panel that came first, they are going to want to tell stories about high growth companies with intellectual property and that could potentially become a unicorn, go public. Everybody loves those stories. And that is part of what makes California, California. But I want to say that it is cupcakes that make the world go round. Restaurants, retail, small business services, and sole proprietors of all kinds, consultants, accountants, lawyers. So of those 4.2 million, 98% have 20 or fewer jobs. So we have to create them in mass as well as create the environment for the high flyer companies as well, because that is part of what makes California, California, and what brings talent and money into our economy. So last point I just want to make is that an idea that is intriguing me personally recently, and that I think is related to this, is the idea of the 15-minute city. So it is kind of the nexus of city planning, urban planning, and economic development, where if you had a city organized in a 15-minute walkable grid and you had to replicate services every 15 minutes, that's a way to create jobs. You walk 15 minutes, cupcakes. Walk 15 minutes, cupcakes. That is a way to rapidly create jobs in mass without necessarily having to have the one that becomes the unicorn.
Yeah, so I think, passing it down to Orville, would love for you to kind of share, like, as you're looking at the mobility space or decarbonizing transportation industry, like, what does that look like to, one, create new jobs, but also build out that as a competitive component to the greater Sacramento region as we look at innovation and entrepreneurial activity?
Yeah, thank you for that question. A 15-minute exercise where I get rewarded with cupcakes is like the best workout I think I've ever heard. I'm going to incorporate that into my plan starting tomorrow. And I like to say the decarbonization of transportation, because even our California Mobility Center, we're kind of tinkering with the name because mobility means different things to different people. I understand it as e-mobility. Someone else, might understand it as ramps and accessibility. So, we have to be very intentional when we're talking, especially as we're going into different rooms and asking for venture capital support so that they kind of see what it is that they might be investing in. For me, I've kind of looked at this project from the periphery for about 4 years. I remember coming to Alumni Hall 4 years ago in 2019, January, when they announced the California Mobility Center. I was on a sabbatical and I'd worked in transportation, government relations, and lobbying for, I think, 5 years at that point, and looking at what's next. And the idea that we were going to bring a 200,000 square foot facility to Sacramento to help anchor and attract new companies that can think through zero emissions was outstanding to me. I really was excited about it. So it's been interesting because all my other jobs since then have kind of wrapped around the mobility center to get to see how it's doing. And so when I look at what we can do now in the vision that I share with my board and partners like those that are on this panel are, how can we create, one, a workforce that will be able to have the skills necessary to get involved in that? And it could be a lot of different things. It could be battery manufacturing. It could be working for SMUD or Roseville Power to energize sites for EV chargers. It could be working with waste management and landfill companies on-site hydrogen electrolysis. And it could be working with companies that have grown from California, like Tesla and Rivian, on how do we develop the next stage of zero emission vehicles. And so for what we're trying to do is have that workforce development capacity and component, and then couple it and complementary having access to a place where people can settle, knowing that Sac State and their engineering program that has historically done really great things with power engineering and utilities can work with GSEC and help bring the supply chain ecosystem closer to the region, can work with the Governor's Office of Business Development and think through California competes tax credits for investing in the region, can work with a Valley Vision and think through what is an equitable way to grow an economy and an ecosystem so that is sustainable for a long period of time. I think we can encapsulate all of that in this vision of a innovation campus, knowing that if we can build it, it's the field of dreams theory, right? I think most entrepreneurs say, if you build it, they will come. And that is the hope, right? That is what we're trying to do, is if we build all of these things with intentionality and with a focus a little bit on equity to make sure that we're not forgetting a lot of the communities that have been historically disadvantaged, that we can grow our regional economy together in a way that is green and sustainable in multiple ways.
Awesome. I'll maybe jump here to John, since we're kind of looking at it from that industry perspective. So, and then we'll go to Trolls and Evan. But would love, you're in the food and ag sector, and so as you're looking at kind of the needs of that innovation cluster and creating, job opportunities and competitiveness, what are some of the needs that you're foreseeing and are seeing right now to support entrepreneurs in getting started, but also scaling to that next level?
Well, there's a lot of innovation that's going on here in the California ecosystem, a lot of entrepreneurs with bright ideas. Some of them need lab space or other facilities. Others, like Michael, with what he's doing, it's more electronics and Internet of Things technologies. He's been using some of the lab space in Inventopia. And then as startups get out of the kind of prototyping stage and into larger scale production, in many cases, they need to ramp up. A lot of agriculture is related to biomass or bioconversion of something. They need large quantities of whatever material they're working with, and that means larger scale-up facilities. There are efforts within the Sacramento region, I would say more on the 5-year vision, to build a scale-up facility, perhaps in the Woodland Davis area. But right now, for startups that are looking to scale immediately, this year, it's very challenging and expensive for them. The answer from the previous panel, money is always the answer, but to make it cost effective and make it repeatable, it'd be great if we had more shared resources. So scale up could happen in a facility where you don't have to start from scratch and build all of your infrastructure from scratch. For every entrepreneur going through that process, there's a lot of wasted time and effort as they wait for materials or equipment or instruments to come in and be installed and everything else. So as we look at that whole trajectory from the idea stage to the proof of concept to the bench level commercialization and then scale up for large scale production, there are resources and facilities that could be made available at each of those stages. The benefit by having a strong cluster in ag and food here in this region, the benefit is you've got a lot of entrepreneurs that are going through similar phases. You've got a lot of established companies that have unique talents or insights into how to go through the regulatory process for new biological crop protection, for example. There are clusters within the Sacramento region for vegetable seed breeding. All the major seed breeders on the globe are here in the California Central Valley and generally within a 20-mile radius of UC Davis because they all want to be here for this market. There's a cluster of biological crop protection companies that was, Pam Marone was one of the pioneers. She founded AgriQuest, now part of Bayer. She founded Marone Bio, now part of another company. She had previously worked with Novo Nordisk, and now she's got her own fourth startup that she's working on. There's a whole cluster of the alumni from each of those, from AgriQuest and now at BioConsortia. And, I mean, you could talk about a litany of startup companies all in that space. And so, again, once the flywheel starts working, you have more and more companies that get spun out over time. But we have enough of a critical mass here where I think we can get shared resources in scale up in other stages that would really do a lot to start fostering economic development in the region.
So love it. And so taking kind of that, building on our innovation clusters and really looking at its role on job creation and competitiveness, would love to turn over to Troels and Evan. As we start to look at economic development and the role entrepreneurship plays in it, how can we continue to elevate that and really ingrain it into our strategies going forward, and what role do partners like AgStar and the Mobility Center and Aggie Square and all the things that are going forward integrate into that effort and play a larger role?
Sure. I guess I'll go first.
Sure.
So I think for those of you all who are not familiar with GSEC as an organization, we're about 8 years old, and we were really started with a very, very clear mission. The Greater Sacramento region is highly dependent on government for jobs, right? And I say this, by the way, I've worked in government in 2 states and 2 countries, so it is not a knock on government whatsoever. However, any regional economy, you don't want to be over leveraged to a single industry, let alone a single employer, which is our case. In fact, the Greater Sacramento region is more dependent on government employment than the Washington D.C. region is, right? So that gives you a sense of just the concentration of that particular sort of industry here, if you will. And so what we really need to do from a regional economic standpoint is we need to diversify our economy, right? And that means expanding job creation across industries. So that's where the California Mobility Center comes in. That's where AgStar comes in. That's where Aggie Square comes in. That's where Biospace in West Sacramento comes in. That's where everything that's going on in these very sophisticated industry clusters. Our semiconductor industry is doing extremely well right now, right? We need to do that, but we also need to expand job creation in terms of the kinds of activities that we do, right? So when we first started as an organization, there was a very heavy focus on business attraction, and that makes sense, right? We need more corporate headquarters here. We need more large companies to move their activities here, and we need more small and mid-sized companies. I think one of the things that's important to understand is over half of the companies that we work with, when we recruit them into the region, have less than 5 employees. We're not necessarily a large corporate recruitment market like some others are. Now, as we've grown and learned as an organization, in our second sort of strategic plan, we added business retention and expansion to the mix. So that's the second way you can grow jobs, right? You can recruit companies, you can grow jobs from existing companies, or you can try to retain them in the region. And the third, of course, is helping entrepreneurs and startups, so create new companies, right? And so here's the deal. You hear this a lot over the country. People are debating, well, which one should we do? Oh my goodness, business attraction is bad, or we need to focus exclusively on entrepreneurs, et cetera, et cetera. Well, my assertion is this: we need all 3, and sometimes one is more important than the other. In certain industries, you may be having to do a lot of business attraction. In certain industries, you're really wanting to do more business retention and expansion. In certain industries, especially when you want to create something from scratch, or it's a new and emerging industry, you've got to really focus on the startup ecosystem. So from our perspective, it's a very natural next step. As Cameron mentioned, we're going to be announcing this week that we're partnering with Sega to really not only help support and bring the way that we work in terms of connecting industries and geographies and different types of companies together. We're going to be bringing that to the startup ecosystem by supporting Sega in a much more robust way. In addition to that, we're going to be partnering with Sega to try to build out, not to just try to build it, but to build out an entire entrepreneurial vertical within our next strategic plan that we're going to be launching next summer. And we want that to be co-created with the ecosystem builders and with the folks that are directly working with startups, right? That's not our intention. We're still going to be, relying on those kinds of folks. So that's really, really critical for us, because again, our end goal as an organization, I think should be all of our collective goals here in the region is to have a diverse economy in every sense of the word, a well-balanced economy and a prosperous economy. And we need every type of what you call tradable sector or industry cluster jobs to really be created and supported. So that's the way we look at it.
Yeah, and I think I would pick up on that from this piece of building a diversified economy means looking at an innovation ecosystem and an entrepreneurial culture at every level, kind of in every community. And what does that really look like? And I think that, all the way from thinking about your brick and mortar businesses, your small minority businesses that maybe you're just building from one or two people, how are those types of businesses being supported in our community? And that's part of our innovation pipeline. I think you also think about rural communities that have really suffered from economic exclusion in a lot of different ways. Entrepreneurialism and supporting that ecosystem to our rural communities is a really important part of that economic integration and inclusivity. So I think that having a really broad definition of what is an entrepreneur, but also what does it mean to support an entrepreneurial culture. If we are successful in doing that, we're not only supporting the technical work in our clusters that bring about competitiveness in a diversified economy, what we're also really thinking person to person, community to community. How are we supporting people in starting their own business? How are we lending to the brick and mortar companies that are on our main street? How are we supporting within our educational systems the way that kids are learning about entrepreneurial skills? So I think it's really a whole community approach to thinking about supporting that ecosystem kind of at every level in order to result in that inclusive and diversified economy.
Awesome. Thank you, Evan. So this will be our last and rapid fire question here, similar to kind of how the last panel ended, but would love for you to share a little bit about how this community can support you in kind of advancing entrepreneurship as a driver for economic development, or in your particular innovation clusters, how this community can support you in building that out. And so maybe we'll start with Claire, how we began, and work our way to John.
So since this is the last question, I would be at fault if I did not talk about a new partnership that was just announced this week. Our office administers a program called Accelerate California, and it is the creation of a network of 13 inclusive innovation hubs across the state. It's not a new program. It started several years ago, about 10 years ago, but it didn't come with any money. It was just the governor saying, good job. And then a couple of years ago, he put $2.5 million into the budget to support inclusive innovation hubs. And this year, $16.5 million. And we just did another round to announce an additional 5 centers, of which I am proud to say Carlson Center is one of the designated. The point of this program is exactly what everybody is talking about, is to support diversity in our innovation economy. So we don't need to focus as much on where the biggest startup ecosystems in the world are, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, but we do need to support entrepreneurial ecosystems in our inland cities, including Sacramento, Fresno, Redding. We have an innovation center in Wairika that focuses on sustainability in ranching. So we're talking about diversity of founders, we're talking about diversity of industries, and we're talking about diversity of geography. And that is the point of this program. And Carlson Center and all the other designees are chosen because they represent our 5 pillars of entrepreneurship. And all of them are represented here. Capital, yes. Technical assistance, training and mentorship, having subject matter expertise, of which you have heard tonight, and I forgot a pillar. And having a place like this where people can come and create that community, and having linkages to anchor institutions, which is what Sacramento has done so successfully over the past 20 years. So I personally am very validated and gratified for that announcement to have been made. That was not a rapid answer, but it's all about you, Cameron. So there you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cameron, for having all of us up and for having the Mobility Center on it. One of the easiest ways to support is to remember us when you win Powerball. We are looking for $300 million, which is a gigantic ask. And that $300 million will build a 200,000 square foot facility that focuses on, the energy and power and zero emission innovations. They're going to power our region forward. And that includes everything from the box that it is as construction to the inside, tech that's going to be there. The easiest way to support, if you're not going to give me your money, is to think about how a innovation hub that I've just described today will impact your businesses. Largely what we're trying to do, and I think all of us are, is create more economic opportunity for all of us to thrive. And so when I say I'm going to put a clean energy and power and zero emission innovation campus right in the greater Sacramento region, that is going to have, ancillary benefits to everybody. I hope more cupcakes. I hope more people come with biotech, venture capital. I hope more people are coming in with agriculture. So if you have the capacity, we will obviously always accept letters of support when we shop around to our federal lawmakers and elected officials and the governor's office, because I think it does take a region to amplify why Sacramento is in need of investments. Fresno has been getting a lot of money lately. So has Bakersfield, so has the Inland Empire, so has the Imperial Valley. And I honestly do think that elected officials forget about the need in Sacramento because they're only used to that 1 square mile around the Capitol. They think we got ours, right? They're at steak dinners or they see people in suits all the time. They don't branch out to see the need in our community for that same type of investment that our partners in the San Joaquin Valley and the Inland Empire and the border areas are getting.
I can say that is true. So even in this process, people were saying, "Oh, entrepreneurs in Sacramento, really?" I'm like, "Yeah, pay attention." And the center and all of you are a big part of that. So this is what I'm hoping to amplify.
All right, well, I'll put out my pitch, which is not for money, it's for engagement. So as part of the program that I spoke a little bit about, the California Jobs First, or the SURF program that Valley Vision is leading on behalf of our region, there's a lot of opportunities for engagement. And we're really pushing a community-centered approach that's very balanced with data about our economic market and our labor markets here. And over the next 4 months, there's a lot of opportunities to get engaged. And we have our project partners doing kind of localized planning tables and bringing people together in order to really talk about what is our vision for inclusive economic growth in our region. The entrepreneurial community is a really important part of that conversation. So showing up at those local tables and talking about what that looks like to you, what that means for your community, would be very important. And you can check out the Valley Vision website to get more information about how to engage in that. But we're really excited about what this program can bring and how we can really all together create a vision for inclusive growth in our region.
All right, I will give you 3 quick hits as well. First and foremost, and I want to thank all the founders who took time out of your undoubtedly incredibly busy schedule to be here today. That's not a small matter, so I appreciate that. And that's going to lead into my first ask, which is, when you hit the big time, when you become the first cupcake trillionaire in world history, invest back into the community, invest back into the region, keep that flywheel going. If there's one thing that characterizes great startup ecosystems, it is that. It's that folks, when they hit the big time, when they get the big exit, they get the big IPO or whatever it is, they actually take not just the money that they made, because that's of course important, but also the other resources, the connectivity, the learnings, and they put that back into the ecosystem, right? And I want to, on that note, I want to recognize Rachel Zillner for doing just that. She's actually agreed to help us out with this partnership with Sega as well, and of course is one of the leading founders here in the region, is just tremendously successful. So thank you for setting that example, because it's super, super important. And yes, you may clap. It's absolutely it. And then secondly, what really characterizes our ecosystem is that it's homegrown, and I mean that in the best way possible. I mean, we have, it's the most ironic thing. We're 90 miles from San Francisco, yet we're flyover country. Like literally, there's like jets flying over my house every day out of SFO, right? I can see my house when I fly out of there, which I do very rarely, because you should support your own airport. But So as a result, though, there are some incredibly resilient and resourceful people who have built the startup ecosystem from scratch here, and I think have avoided some of the many pitfalls to some extent that other ecosystems have, right? So one of the things, I'm hearing some incredible statistics out of this region around how our venture funds and our accelerator programs are supporting female founders and founders of color, right? I think at the Inno Awards, there was some pretty amazing statistics that came out of SAC Angels and Moneta Ventures. I know the Growth Factory, the Carlson Center, you've got the Fourth Wave, you've got Kwame Anku and the Black Star Fund, right? So let's continue doing that. That's really, really important. Let's set that example for the rest of the country, and let's not drop into those pitfalls and also into those behaviors that have characterized other ecosystems around the country. Not just because it's really, really important to build a truly inclusive economy, but also because we're very, very diverse as a region. So if we don't do that, we're going to leave an enormous amount of opportunity and indeed money on the table, right? And I think the third thing we can do is let's be quietly but strongly confident. I think there's the best is yet to come for this region. We are really on an ascendant right now. Just to give you one data point to prove this out, in the last 5 years, the average venture deal size in this region has gone from $1 million to $2 million. I mean, that doesn't sound like a ton, but it is a massive shift. I mean, it actually means that we've doubled our average deal size over the period of just 5 years. Over $12 billion was invested in growth capital into this region, which was also a doubling over the prior 5-year period. So just imagine where we're going to be in the next 5 or 10 or 15 years, as you said, the 20-year time scale, right? So we there is going to be reason to have some swagger for Sacramento over the next, and the region over the next 10 years or so. The rest of the state and the rest of the West Coast, they've had their moment in the sun. I think it's our time, and I think we should really go out and be proud around that. So those are my 3 asks of you all.
Building on what you were saying, Charles, the immense talent that we have in this region could give back to the region. What we need most in the ag and food space, we're building connectivity. Entrepreneurs are very busy, very, very busy people. They don't have the time to build networks either within the region or nationally. And so we've been trying to invest ourselves in building connections to other ag and food entrepreneur support organizations across the country. We would benefit from, there's such a tremendous ag and food industry here right within the Sacramento region, right in the Central Valley. We're trying to build networks of mentors, advisors, subject matter experts who themselves, they're full-time in their career, but they're in some aspect of the food and ag ecosystem here, and they could volunteer to, mentor a startup that's looking for an understanding of, how does the, crop input distribution mechanism work between growers and the manufacturers? How can we make some improvements here? Or I have an idea for an improvement. How do I get a sounding board of 5 or 6 experts in that field and be able to talk to them about, would this be an advance? Would this be something that would be valuable? So again, there's a wealth of knowledge and talent. If they would just volunteer some of their time to mentor some of the startups in the region, that would be a tremendous boost forward. Not just in the agriculture space, but I'm sure in the mobility space or in any of the life science or other domains of interest here in the Sacramento region. People giving their time, volunteering, and just mentoring 1 or 2 entrepreneurs would be a tremendous advantage.
I love it. Well, we have our call to action here, and thank you for the awesome panel, and thank you for the partnership. We're excited to launch the Accelerate California this coming year, and really looking at how we can build those 3 innovation clusters that we spoke to, and really looking at that early stage capital. So in particular, we're going to be launching an angel conference focused on investing in those early stage companies and helping grow that. And so keep an eye out for that come January timeframe. But with that, we'll turn it over to our last panel here, which will be on the investment landscape. And so let's give a round of applause for all of our amazing panelists here. And we'll have Nikki Sims from the Growth Factory who will be stewarding this conversation, and she'll take it away. So thank you all. No. Cheers. No. Stage group. Do you actually?
Wherever you want to sit, I'll sit here.
How you doing? Good to see you. Like second answers. There you go. In the hot seat. There you go. First one out of the gates.
Hello. Rachel, Brooke, panel. Hi. Always.
Make it look good.
I'll try.
Hi.
All right, here we go. All right, everybody, I'm going to kick off our last panel. Hello. I know. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we've talked a lot tonight about community. I know Monique's helping me out here. Trolls, focus. I see you. All right. We've talked a lot about community support. We've talked a lot about mentorship. We've talked a lot about how the regional economy can step up to help entrepreneurs every single day as they sometimes have a lonely journey. And one of the lovely themes that keeps coming up is money. And how do we fund these companies? How do we fund these companies, right? And so obviously that's going to be a really important component, and we get to talk about money. So congratulations to every one of our panelists today. I have such a great panel up here, and so I'm really excited for the insights they're going to share. I'm going to let each one of you do a quick introduction and then explain how you got into investing.
Okay, well, with that sideways glance, I guess I'll start. My name is Brooke Van Sant. I'm an associate at Moneta Ventures, an early stage venture capital fund based in Folsom. I was lucky. I was in the right place at the right time, and I met some folks who thought maybe I could be a good associate. So I don't have a good answer about how I got into investing, but it's been a great experience over the last 2 years working with the Moneta team. As an associate, I do a lot of the early stage investment evaluation, and then I also get to stay involved with companies post-investment. So I get the pleasure of working with founders pre-investment and many years into their journey. But we are one of the few local venture firms with a significant presence in the Sacramento area.
Okay, hi, I'm Rachel Zillner. How did I get, so I guess I would have to say, how did I get into entrepreneurship? I started when I was like 5 selling paintings to my dad's clients because they were fabulous and I'm a renowned artist. No, I'm just kidding. That was how, but I started in real estate, bought my first house when I was 20, my first rental at 22, opened an escape room 7 years ago, sold it this January for my first exit. Franklin helped us find that property. Thank you, Franklin. And then opened Clutch, founded that 4 years and a month ago. How did I get into investing? Well, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, besides 401k, I invented the financial education program at Safe Credit Union, so I knew a lot about money, but I didn't know a lot about investing, VC funds, angel investing, and made my first investment into the ice hockey rink that's going to come to Folsom Ranch, and wrote them a check that just went, and that was a convertible note. I had no idea what the heck that meant. I was like, cool, yeah, here's a check. I believe in what you're doing. It sounds awesome. And then they just converted that into shares. So that was exciting. It's my first one.
Great, thank you.
My name's DJ Steffen, multi-time founder. How did I get into investing? After we sold, I was part of SkySlip, it's a real estate tech company here in the region. I co-founded that with Tyler Smith, and we sold that majority interest to Fidelity National Title in 2018. And once the headlines hit the news, I got a lot of emails asking for money. So naturally, I decided to become an investor, and that was my journey since then.
My name is Nuli. How did I get into investing? I actually don't know that I'm an investor up until now.
Technically, you are.
Got it. So I just look for opportunities. I see a problem, I try to fix it, and along the way, if it makes sense to invest, I invest. So I like to be not just put in money and walk away, but I want to be part of it almost on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. So I think that's how gets me involved and also pivot accordingly along the way.
Great, thank you. So you all have been working in the investment landscape for some time, or it's been a part of your journey as an entrepreneur. Let us know, how have you seen the investment landscape change, and what has compelled you to give back to the region as an investor?
Sure. So I think the journeys within the Sacramento region, even though it's started like 20 years back or so, but I thought it really propelled in the past like 10, 12 years, right? And even more in the past 5, 6 years. Now, to a lot of the panel members before us, right, it's about the ecosystem, the growth, the memberships, the actual accelerators, the innovation companies that are up here. I think all of this culmination of things is what is exciting to see where we are right now. And the journey has just started. I feel it's just started. It's like an NBA league, right? So you just start and then the playoffs happens and the final starts, right? So I think we're just before the playoffs. I think the exciting journey is going to start now, and we have a lot more to achieve.
Well, that was the rosy outcome. I'm going to give a little more pessimistic outlook. 2 years ago, the entrepreneurs had the leverage. Now the investors have the leverage. That's just the reality of the situation. I'm actively involved in a company that will surpass 3 million in ARR and is growing 100% year over year. And we're fighting for term sheets right now. A year ago, they would have been thrown at us. And I think the biggest thing that's changed now is stories don't sell anymore. Results sell, data sells. Like, you actually have to have results and revenue and users now, and growing at an acceptable clip. Before, you could just have a good narrative and a decent founding team and you get money thrown at you. That's not the case anymore. We got to get back to our fundamentals here of just running really good businesses and focusing on results first. So that's the paradigm shift I've seen in the last 12 months from an investment perspective. And for me personally, why I invest in this region is I'm born and raised in this region. I've told this to Monique and the Growth Factory a lot. I love this region. I actually like it a lot, but I really love the type of people this region produces. I think Sacramento is a really unique characteristic. We're humble, we're hardworking, we're smart, we're talented. And what I love about it most is we're connected. Like, we're all connected. We can all uplift one another. And I just want to continue to give back and foster that community. So that's what really excites me about investing in this region.
I would take another different look, although agree with everything you said about Sacramento. It's freaking amazing. The people here are incredible, and we have everything we need right here. I don't know anything about the environment before 2 years ago, before I put a toe in, so that's the only reason I have mine is a shorter-lived thing. But I think in our landscape, there's a whole lot of people out there that don't know anything about angel investing, don't know anything about VC funding. In fact, my co-founder and I have been hosting a series of events to just teach people, specifically women, about investing and the opportunities that are available to them. And we're cultivating a new group of people who want to invest, who are now understanding it a little bit better. And we're specifically looking to support businesses that are female founded or founded by people of color, because that's how you change the statistics, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I've been in the Sacramento region about as long as I've been an investor, so about 2 years. So I can't really speak to anything in the region before that, but based on the experiences of our team more broadly, I think that there is a recognition that the Sacramento region actually does have a startup scene, and that's growing outside of this region as well. I think that a lot of investors that I talk to, counterparts at other firms, are surprised to hear that I'm based in Sacramento and that we actively invest in the region. But I would say that one of the positive benefits of COVID is that people recognize that companies can be founded outside of core technology hubs, and firms are much more willing to admit that they're investing there as well. So I totally agree with DJ. It's definitely a changing funding environment. If you look at when I joined Moneta, it was about the peak of the valuations, and since then, things have definitely changed significantly. A lot less funding is going, and the terms have changed dramatically as well. But I would say that for Sacramento, Monique, I think, started off this panel by saying there's a lot of momentum in the region. I do think a lot of that is driven by the connectedness of people. I think that more so than ever, we have resources that are helping folks connect with the right folks. If you go back to our first panel, we're talking about mentorship. How do you find the right people? I think that at the end of the day, that's always going to be driven by folks that know you and also know the folks that you need to be mentored by, right? So the more that we have connectors in the region, I think it's helpful not only from that mentorship perspective, but also to attract, funding both from other folks in the community who are looking to give back, but also folks outside the region. So I think there's more momentum towards that, and I'm excited to see that continue over the next few years.
Thank you. So it is a tough market right now. We all know this. It's no secret, and it's really difficult for founders to raise money. So DJ, I'll have you kick this off. How do you recommend they keep their confidence during these times?
Man, that can be tough.
Softball.
Yeah, softball. I'm going to sound like a broken record on this again. Focus on what matters. A lot of people think fundraising, polishing their pitch deck, that's what matters, but it's about revenue. It's about profitability. That's what matters. And I promise you, if you focus on that, the investors will come. So don't lead with investors, lead with running a great, fundamentally sound business, and the rest will take care of itself. I think that paradigm is sinking in really quickly for a lot of folks, and it's a good shift. Yeah.
No, I think it's +1. I think it is focus on, it doesn't have to be just about money in the initial stages, right? It's about your product score, your engagement score, your number of downloads, anything that is going to be materialistically different from last week or the month before, right? If you focus on that, I'm sure you're going to hit your first dollar, and therefore you'll get into that 500K, 100K, whatever it is, right? And that's going to be the differentiating factor. So that's my take.
Sure. So my experience has been different as the founder of a company that grew 4,405% in the last 4 years. We kicked ass. We were taking names. I had everything I needed to show that the data was working and it was happening, except that I'm not a guy. So when I went out to ask for money, I got told no. I got told no a lot. And I got a couple opportunities to do things that would have us give up a lot more control in the organization than I was willing to give up. So instead, I turned to a total alternative way of going, which was a hard money loan, and got super lucky that I had 4 childhood friends that I had no idea had any money, who actually had a fair amount of money and were willing to take a bet on us. And we rewarded them really well for that, but it sucked a lot to go through that and the stress, and that's actually why my co-founder and I are looking for a way to support that group. Because it's a different experience for everyone. What I can say is that I learned all kinds of cool stuff as I've been out there researching why does this happen. And I learned things like, and it's no offense to men are amazing. I'm married to an incredible man. This is not man hating, I promise you. But I learned that women are 7 times more likely to lead a successful organization. That's a statistically proven fact. That's freaking awesome. So I am looking to corral people who are interested in supporting women and put a beacon up in the sky that says, for women and people of color, insert your dollars here and let's go make this happen in the economy. We are getting tremendous success so far with everyone we've talked to, and I hope to have it ready to rock. And we are doing investing in early stage up to second round, and it's based on your success, but also your energy. We're taking a different look at the emotional intelligence, what it takes to be a thought leader, what mindsets you're focused on, because if you're aligned the right way, I don't care what you do for business, you'll do well if you're aligned for that. And we are proven fact of that. I don't know crap about government consulting, and that's what our whole business is, and we're doing exceptionally well. So I'll just say your energy matters, how you show up matters. That's my 2 cents.
It's hard to follow that. So the question is, how do you keep your head up as a founder in a tough fundraising market? I think that if you're a founder and you're tying your sense of worth or sense of if your company is successful or not to whether or not you raise money, it's going to be a rough couple years for you. So I think that my best piece of advice is to really focus on the things that DJ was talking about, where you're, talking about, what do your customers love your product? Are you growing as a company? Are you building processes that are scalable? Not necessarily are you raising dollars and is it at a valuation that's growing right with the pace that your revenue is growing. It's going to be a rough, I think, couple years in that respect, right? So think about how you can be grounding yourself to the business performance, or maybe something else. Maybe you're learning as an entrepreneur that's going to help you, but the longer term vision that you can have, it's going to be, I think, a better outcome.
Great. So investing in the regional economy is really important, obviously, for economic growth. And I know on our end, as far as Growth Factory is concerned, in the short 2 years that we've been investing, we've already created 225 jobs in the region, which is tremendous. And for each yes, Monique will give a standing ovation for herself later. But also for every high-tech job that's created in the region, there's an additional 5 jobs that can be created through network effect, like your, bussers and restaurant workers and folks that can support in that way. What other types of economic growth have you seen from investing in the region? Softballs.
I can go. Thank you. So the one thing is maybe not tangible, but the intangible is the knowledge, right? So an investor or a founder coming into a room, it's an idea that I've not heard before, right? It's a new mechanism of funding that I've not heard before. So this would not have happened until that ecosystem is actually at a mature stage, right? So that's one thing, right? Yes, you will have this cascading effect of more jobs, more money, more ecosystem, so on, but the intangible benefits are much more, right? And the confidence that comes along with it, right? So you fly out somewhere, now people know, oh, Sacramento, oh, great, right? So previously it was not the case, at least. Right? That's what I see that as a benefit.
Yeah, let me think about this for a second. I growing up here, I think for a long time we tried to attach ourselves to the Bay Area, this stepchild, this unwanted stepchild, and they would just laugh at us, say that's cute, and it was cute. But I see us forming a new identity now. And the San Francisco is great, and it has its own identity. Sacramento, what I love about our region is we're a small community, and we're all connected. Where everyone in this room is 1 degree of separation from everyone else that is doing things mentor-wise, money-wise, advice-wise, and that's our competitive advantage. Let's lean into that. Let's lean into that, and by just showing up here today, you guys are leaning into that. You guys are actively participating in this community. Now you can go share these words of wisdom. You can go make a network here, connect that. And that's our competitive advantage. So it's not just about money. It's not just about starting companies. It's just leaning into this network and just realizing we're all 1 degree of separation. And if we all pull in the same direction, that's really powerful what we can do as a region. So applaud you guys for showing up tonight. And that's my recommendation for that.
So what I think, besides jobs, one of the goals that we have is that our founders will be successful enough to reinvest into the region, right? We had a cool experience where founders exited a company recently and then reinvested into our fund, which is one of the first times that's happened. But I think on a more macro level, that happens across the region, right? I think you were called out earlier, Rachel, but people who have success in the region, and DJ as well, I think you're both great examples of this. People who grow, these companies not only create jobs, but also create wealth that's then, stays in the community to a large degree through other investments and just economic activity in general.
Great, thank you. So I'm gonna have our corporates enter the chat here. So we have 2 great ones that have shown up tonight, Vistar Bank and SMUD, that really support the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So when we think about the ways that corporates can support and invest in these companies, it's not just dollars, it's also opportunities for pilots so they can get a logo and they can get an opportunity to show that their product works with a large organization and work out some of the kinks. But it's not a one-way relationships. In fact, since we've been through COVID and these fluctuating markets, our corporates also need to stay on their toes and innovate. So what are ways that you all think that startups, from your experience, can support corporates within the region?
There's of course opportunities for whatever it is that you do to reach out and have a conversation with those corporate organizations to say, can I support you in this? Can I help you in this? We certainly did that. Started ear hustling at every event that we were at to say, oh, they need that. We could do that. What would you think? Or we would look at jobs that people were hiring and say, hey, that's something we could do as a consultant and get it set up for you. Then you could hire someone who does a function as opposed to trying to find a unicorn who can set it up and run the job. I would say there are lots of really cool programs out there that's like micro lending and proof of concept. There's even one I just learned about. The federal government does an SBIR, which is like an innovation grant for $150,000. And then if your prototype works, then they'll give you more money. And then if that works, they'll give you like a few $1 million to keep going. If you have a special innovation, I mean, that's government, but it's a massive corporation. I would say that's a couple.
For me, I think the barrier is intimidation. So as a startup, you always wonder, hey, can I go to the smarts of the world, or maybe the Sutter hospitals of the world, and say that, hey, I have this product, be it health tech, fintech, it doesn't matter. Finding in the right domain, right? And saying that, can I knock their doors and say that, hey, can you help me? I have this product, right? Where do you get started? How do you get started? Is it too much to reach out to a person, send an email to say, hey, is it fearful, right? Basically, don't be fearful, right? I think big companies also, if they create an awareness to say that, hey, we will support small businesses because of ABCD reasons or because of these programs, I think that's the conjunction where, like, if the companies or the C's of the world can come together and create that awareness, I think that will be a best possible area for startups to even more flourish.
I feel like a politician because I'm just going to answer this question even in a way that I don't think is the way you framed the question. That's okay. It's my own way. Thanks. Startups isn't like a size of company. I believe startups is a mindset. It's how efficiently and effectively can you solve a problem. That's really what all we're doing at startups. We just do it at a very micro scale. It's like, there's a problem. How efficiently and effectively do I do it? I have very little cash, very little resources. I need to figure out the most effective way to solve this problem, and I have very little time and resources to do so. That's not that, startups get glorified for that, but that happens at every company, in every organization, public sector, private sector, big companies, small companies. So the more we kind of band together and share a startup mindset to solve any problem, the more effective the region's going to be, the more effective every company's going to be, the more effective public offices are going to be, all of it. So it's really just a mindset and mentality that the more we get together, the more we share this, the more effective we can be at that.
I like their answers.
Great. All right, I'm going to do my rapid fire. Okay. So we talked a lot tonight about just the blossoming ecosystem and how all of these parts are coming together to create something truly magical. And we're all really, really proud of that work. And it's because of everyone in the room today that we're all able to get up and do this work every single day. So my question to you all is, as we become, blossoming and then we grow up and put our big girl pants on, what do you think is missing to make us world class, and how do we get there?
I think that we need more types of investors. I think this was brought up earlier. We do B2B software. That's a small percentage of the companies in this ecosystem. And there are a lot of people that we end up referring outside the region that we could be funding locally.
We need community to show up in a different way. We even myself, I remember the Growth Factory calling when we were in the middle of huge growth, and when he's like, can you mentor? And I was like, oh God, I can't even imagine finding time or space for that. But I think we need to normalize that and figure out what the minimum ask is to the community. And I was hearing tonight about the ag space, and I was thinking, gosh, I have so many cool friends in ag. I know they'd be willing, but we need some conveners. And we need that ask to go out again. I think sometimes we get tired because we've already asked, and we need just to keep asking. And that's, as annoying as it might be, people will say yes. Wear them down. We can do it. We'll get to a yes, in that regard. Because we have the knowledge and we have all the resources. We just aren't bringing them together enough. Events like this is great for that. and they just need to keep happening like ad nauseum. And we also need to record our stuff so that folks who can't access it by being able to physically get here can find that through another mechanism, I'd say.
Thank you.
What was the question again? I want to answer this correctly. I don't want to go on my own tangent again.
How do we get to be world class? What do we need to do?
That's right. We need to define what world class means to us. You know, it doesn't have to be the same as everything else. So first, that's number one. We need to define what that means to us, and then we need to create a vision that inspires everyone to be able to plug into whatever that is. Because right now, I think we're all moving in a direction, but we don't know what the end game looks like. What is our utopia? What does Sacramento's startup utopia look like? We need to find that vision, and that will empower everyone, whatever position, role, responsibility, to be able to find their way to contribute toward that vision. It's just, again, we're still in our infancy stages. So this will emerge, but I hope that emerges sooner than later, but we're still in our infancy stages of this, but that's one thing that we need.
Hey, DJ, you want to partner on a mission to go define world class and then come back and share it?
Done.
Let's do it.
And this is how it gets started.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I love it.
So for me, I mean, world class, I think it changes person to person, right? But for me, what I'm looking for is for people to take that risk. I know it's so easy to get into the 8 to 5, go to the job, right? Go grow in the career. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that if you want to build a world-class ecosystem around you, you got to take that risk, right? And on the other side of the fence, learn to say no. It doesn't matter. It's okay, right? So you will say no 10 times, but the 11th time you'll say yes, right? So unless this culmination of both these things doesn't come together, there's always going to be like this Lego pieces falling apart. Right? You got to have both of those, and that for me is a full class.
Great, thank you. And thank you all for showing up tonight. You were awesome. Every one of our panelists was fantastic. If you want to learn more about angel investing, certainly have a conversation with Rachel. It's fantastic. And Cameron will give us a shameless plug for AngelCon. Breakfast on Friday. All right, thank you guys.
All right, just in wrapping us up, thank you all for hanging on till the end. I know we had a lot of content thrown at your way, and I hope your brains are feeling filled with all the information. But we have a full week ahead of us, so today is just day one of GEW, so we do have a whole host of events taking place the rest of the week. So we're back at it at 10 a.m. if you want to come learn about some stories of two entrepreneurs who were started here out of Sac State. We'd love for you to join us. And if you want to learn more, just type in GEW Sacramento, and you should be able to find the host of amazing events that we'll be putting on throughout the week. Want to say thank you again to all of our panelists and our moderators. So thank you, Monique and Nikki, for moderating, and our awesome panelists. Let's give it a round of applause for all of them. And we got our calls to action of how we can support one another in building this world-class entrepreneurial ecosystem, and we'll soon enough find out what world-class means by our dynamic duo of Rachel and DJ. So thank you again, drive home safe, and we look forward to seeing you across the week. Alrighty, thank you, bye-bye.
Enjoy dad duties.